Good evening. Welcome to the first edition of Coffee Break Tennis since the beginning of the COVID-19 era. Tennis is in a state of emergency. The ATP has suspended all tennis for 6 weeks due to public health and safety issues over COVID-19. As of yesterday, all ATP Tour and Challenger events scheduled up to and during the week of April 20th will not take place, including the precious Sunshine Double. Only 5 days ago, Indian Wells, the first part of the Sunshine Double, was canceled 5 days ago, and at the time, many people, including myself, were thinking maybe this is a bit of an overreaction. Only 2 days ago, the Miami Open was trying to assure everyone that things were still going to go on as planned. They even posted this on Twitter, which has widely been mocked since. 1 day before canceling. Obviously, they wanted to carry on with plans for the Miami Open no matter what happened, but it is out of their hands. Because not only has the ATP, as I said before, announced that there will be no tennis for 6 weeks, and by the way, where does that take us in 6 weeks? Take a look at this. This is a map showing you where the outbreaks are for coronavirus, COVID-19. What tournaments will we come back to? Madrid? Take a look. Big red circle right on top of Madrid. Do you really think in 6 weeks' time they're going to be ready to do Madrid? What about right after Madrid? Rome, Italy. Look at that big red circle. Probably the worst place as far as COVID-19 coronavirus is concerned in the entire world at the moment. Do you really think they will be ready in 6 weeks? But not only did the ATP suspend and the WTA, let's not leave out women's tennis as well. Not only did they suspend all tennis for 6 weeks, and come on, we know it's going to be more than just 6 weeks at this rate. Hopefully it's not going to be forever. Hopefully it'll be done in time for Wimbledon. Take a listen to this. Apparently, Miami tried so hard, but it was really out of their hands. Miami-Dade Mayor Carlos A. Jimenez declared a state of emergency in Miami-Dade County and made the decision to suspend operations of the Miami Open due to the ongoing concerns, blah, blah, blah. So basically, they had no say. Miami, they couldn't do it. The city told them no. And guess what's happened since then? That guy, Mayor of Miami-Dade, Carlos A. Jimenez, now he has the coronavirus. Oh, wait. It's not him. It's the mayor of Miami. There is a mayor of Miami and a mayor of Miami-Dade County. There's two of them. How confusing is that? Well, take a look at this anyways. Both of them were hanging out with the entourage and himself included President of Brazil, Jair Bolsonaro. Now, they both are under quarantine, even though only one of them actually tested positive. How crazy is that? Along with Miami and Indian Wells, you're also going to see the clay, whatever they call it, in Houston here in the States. That clay tournament that was always green until last year. Finally, they made it some kind of artificial red. It's canceled. Marrakesh in Morocco, that's canceled. Monte Carlo, first Masters tournament on clay, a tournament that we all love, with probably the most beautiful view in all of tennis, canceled. Barcelona, canceled. Hungarian Open in Budapest, canceled. And I'm telling you, there's probably going to be more. I can't get over how funny it is to me that everyone thought this was crazy. I can't believe Indian Wells is suspended, overreacting. Surely they won't cancel Miami. And now they have canceled Alta. You know what Alta is? That's the league that I play in. That's what I call the beer league here in Georgia. It's the biggest amateur league of recreational tennis players in the world. They canceled the entire spring season. We will not have a chance to compete. I was going to play a match tomorrow morning. It's off. The whole season is off. In fact, they've also canceled all USTA leagues due to the heightened concerns surrounding the COVID-19 virus. Effective immediately, the USTA will suspend all USTA-sanctioned products and events, including adults and junior tournaments, league tennis, junior team tennis, USTA school programs, tennis on the campus, wheelchair events, and also USTA Pro Circuit events. They've literally canceled everything. All tennis is canceled except for the Ultimate Tennis League, which is the one I'm in that I play singles in, and I hope they don't cancel my singles league because I'm doing quite well at the moment. So what will happen next? No one knows. Nobody. You can't trust anyone right now because if they tell you they know what's going to happen next, they're probably lying. In fact, there's only one man on this world who knows what will happen next, and of course, it's the man who knew all of this in advance when he opted to have knee surgery, Mr. Roger Federer. His plan, flawlessly executed, just like his game on the tennis court. Today on Coffee Break Tennis, we'll talk maybe a little bit more about the COVID-19 coronavirus stuff and what it's doing to tennis and what it means. We'll definitely talk about how rankings will be affected and just the overall feel of the 2020 tennis season, which is quite a feel, huh? We'll talk about that. We'll talk about Novak Djokovic and what could have been this year and what really is a shame for Djokovic and his fans. Perhaps it does work in the favor of Roger Federer. We'll talk about that. And also, I saw an interesting article at the ATP Tour website with the coach of Serbian player Kecmanovic. Thought it was very interesting, and we will cover that and maybe a couple other things on today's very scary, very serious edition of Coffee Break Tennis. But it's late, so we're going to do a nice hiney. So first up, let me just address this. This was in the press release, which, by the way, they dated the press release announcing that they were going to suspend all tennis March 12th, 1820. They were off by 200 years. Comment below if I'm not the only one who caught that mistake. This is something else they had in the press release down at the very bottom. And this is an interesting thing. The ATP is carefully reviewing the broad impact of this evolving situation related to FedEx ATP rankings points, and any decisions will be announced all in due course. So basically what that means is a lot of players are going to have some serious points drop if what looks like the clay season entirely is going to be canceled, not just the two big hardcourt tournaments in the Sunshine Double, but it's looking like maybe there will be no clay season. And think about all of the players who make their money and their rankings points during the clay season. So a lot of players are going to miss out on a big chunk of their check, and a lot of players are going to lose a lot of points that they can't defend. So it looks like the ATP is thinking about doing a rankings freeze, which, look at somebody like Dominic Thiem. He went to Indian Wells. He prepared to defend his 1,000 points from winning last year over Roger Federer in the final. And is it really his fault that they decide to cancel the tournament and he can't defend his 1,000 points? Does he got to lose all 1,000 points? Does he get $0 for his trouble making the trip, bringing the team, hiring, paying for the coaches and the physio and everyone that comes with him? He's got to pay for all those plane tickets, reservations for places for them to stay. That's a lot of money. I'm feeling it from, even though, and I got to say thank you to all of you out there. Coffee Break Tennis, after applying a few times in the past, finally got a press pass to Miami. So I was going to have the free parking pass, which is an incredible thing to have at a tennis tournament if you've ever been to one before. And I was going to forget the parking. I was going to be able to interview the players. I was going to be able to see all the matches. I had a press pass because they're starting to take Coffee Break Tennis more seriously as we are always growing. And I got to thank you for that because you guys make all of that possible, you guys and ladies out there. And anyway, so thank you. I had a press pass, and of course, I paid in advance for Airbnb, place to stay nearby, and I could only get a 50% refund after canceling. So, I'm feeling that little bit of pain of, one, not getting to use my press pass, which I was very excited about. Hopefully, they'll give us one next year. And two, I lost real money, hundreds of dollars gone forever. So I can only imagine all the players, forget Dominic Thiem. I'm sure it hurts him because he's got to pay for a big team. Dominic Thiem team. But what about players who barely made it? Think about like Sumit Nagal. Remember that guy who played Roger Federer last year in the first round? And everyone, every commentator had to make the same joke over and over, like, take a look again. That's not the Nadal. That's Nagal. Even though you could have been fooled by that big forehand he just hit with massive topspin. Remember that guy? So we've seen stories about him in the past that he was getting funding from India, but then India had cut him off and they didn't have enough money to spread around to their tennis talent. What about a guy like that? What if, I don't know if he even went. I don't think he was going to be playing at Indian Wells. But, what if somebody's like that's over there and they're spending their last dollars and now who knows when there will be tennis again? Federer, he's got sponsors. Nadal, Djokovic, Big Three, Dominic Thiem, go further down. A lot of guys, they got sponsors and they're going to be okay. But what about the guys who really live off of that prize money that they make at these tournaments? In a tournament like Indian Wells, you're expecting a pretty big chunk, even if you lose early, just kind of like at a Grand Slam. It's part of your budget. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do. The rankings freeze, is that enough? Are they going to have to give some money? Maybe some players need to be reimbursed a little bit for traveling out to Indian Wells and then finding out there is no tournament. All that stuff is very interesting to me, and we'll be keeping our eye on it here at Coffee Break Tennis. And even though there's not going to be any tennis, we will do shows. I've heard some recommendations saying, hey, Matt, why don't you review big matches from the past, like, say, during Indian Wells, during Miami. Maybe do a video talking about the final from last year, or that final with Juan Martín del Potro and Federer in 2017. That was a great final. I think those are good ideas. Maybe I'll do some stuff like that. Comment below what kind of things we should cover on the show in the 6, probably more weeks where there is no real tennis to talk about. I'm curious to hear what you guys think. And of course, one of the things we'll do is we'll follow what's going to happen, when will there be tennis, and what are they going to do for some of these players out there who are struggling in a big way, I'm sure, financially. So we covered that. Let's move on to this article I saw about Novak Djokovic's serve. I believe this is Craig O'Shaughnessy's work. Maybe not, but they do post a lot of stuff he does at atptour.com. And one of the things I was going to do, we were so busy in Florida with our clinics, me and Pete. I wanted to have a show with Pete, so he was at the Australian Open helping with this company that takes people to see, great seats, biggest events in the world like the Australian Open. Pete, he got to go. All I got was this hat. Thank you, Pete, for the very nice hat. I put this here because this might be the only major we see for a while in 2020. There might not be a French Open. In fact, even Wimbledon, throw that on the screen for a second. Even Wimbledon has said if one of the options is to play without fans in the crowd, we won't do it. We would rather cancel Wimbledon this year than play without fans. There is a chance that this and hopefully the U.S. Open, hopefully this is all over with long before the U.S. Open, but if they were to cancel the French Open and Wimbledon, hopefully we'd have the U.S. Open still. But there is a small chance this could be your only major in 2020. I mean, we haven't seen stuff like that since World War II. If you're like me and you like to look through tennis history, you notice, they didn't play in the 1940s, although there were some French Opens in the 40s, and they don't count. The people who won, they were stripped during occupation in France. Also in World War I, there were some cancellations. Anyways, we're in uncharted territories. Like I said, it took a world war to cancel in the past. We may have a major canceled for the first time since World War II because of World War coronavirus. So one of the things I wanted to have Pete on the show to talk about, since he was part of this Tennis Ventures thing where they take people on these luxurious tours and they also give you coaches who can give you tennis lessons and stuff like that. And Pete was there as a coach, and he got to have these awesome seats, and he got to see Federer up close at the Australian Open, and he got to see Djokovic up close at the Australian Open. And he said these were his big takeaways I wanted to talk to him about. One, he said Federer, the way he's playing now as he's getting older, is a way that no one could play. No one has the hand skills and, no one has the kind of skills of Roger Federer I'll give you an example of what Pete was talking about. Pete said nowadays, and you see it better when you're up close in person, when Federer hits a serve, he doesn't really work so hard to recover back. He's basically, if you hit a great return, Federer's betting on his first serve is going to be so good that when he lunges, he jumps up to hit the serve and he goes into the court. Instead of recovering back like you traditionally would see with pro players so much, he's going to stay inside the baseline and bet on his first serve that it's good enough that he has a short ball and he'll move in forehand, maybe close out a volley after the forehand. Boom, boom, tennis. It's over. And if you hit a great return, he's perfectly fine with just kind of doing like a half volley short hop off of the baseline. I mean, we've seen that before, but Pete said it was really interesting seeing it up close. Also, everyone who sees Federer in person up close always comments on how he looks like he's floating. Pete said, yes, the footwork does look awesome, but he said when you're there, you do see he is working very hard to move like that. It looks graceful, yes, but he says on TV, it's more floaty. He said when you're up close, you can tell like what Federer is doing is not easy, and it's amazing how fast he is. Then I asked Pete, well, what were your takeaways from Djokovic? And Pete said, well, Federer is the only person who can do what he's doing because it requires so much skill to take the ball so early and just be inside the baseline so often. But Djokovic is invincible. That was Pete's big takeaway, and that's the way Djokovic has looked for most of this year. And then Pete said, you really can see development in the serve for Djokovic, and he said one thing he noticed is it seems like Djokovic is doing a good job of making himself taller. He's managing to catch that ball at a height never before, so he's kind of replicating the effect of a big server. Think of someone taller like a John Isner or Karlovic, and he said he's really doing a great job extending up and out and getting more on his serve than he ever has before. And I thought it was interesting that I see this article at ATP Tour all about pay attention to Novak Djokovic's serve in 2020. And I've said it before in the last couple years, if Djokovic is serving great, if he's getting a lot of first serves in and he's hitting spots and it's high quality and it's similar to what you see with the way Roger Federer uses his serve, Djokovic is almost completely unbeatable. The only kind of people who can beat him when he's playing like that is someone like a Kyrgios or a Federer who can just totally play so much offense it takes the racket out of your hands. So they quote John Isner at the beginning of this article saying, you actually don't think about Djokovic's serve, which is kind of disrespectful to him in a sense because he does everything so well. Meaning he does everything so well that you don't notice, the serve being as good as it is because, it doesn't seem as great as some of the amazing stuff he does. He addresses that right away. You immediately will talk about Djokovic's return and, of course, his movement around the court and his ground strokes. They are the best in the world. You notice those things. You don't notice the serve so much. But if Djokovic didn't have all that, you would have to credit him as having a pretty good serve. Starting in 2011, Djokovic finished among the ATP Tour's 10 best in service games won percentages every season, except for, of course, 2017. He has the elbow surgery and he tweaks the service motion. We all know how bad the Djokovic serve was. Main thing was he couldn't hit spots. That was the main takeaway there. Now Isner's saying Djokovic spot serves very well. He won't necessarily hit 130 miles per hour, but he's definitely improved the part of his game. Djokovic would probably even say 6 or 7 years ago that his serve was a bit of a liability, but now it's not at all, and that's why he's the most dominant player in the game. And if we look at the 2019 service games won leaderboard, you see right at the top, Isner's winning 94% of his service games. Federer number 2 at 91. Opelka tied number 3, 91. Nadal 90%, and Djokovic winning 88%. Now, one thing they note here is that Djokovic career numbers, he's got, I believe it says here, the 5th highest career second serve points won, winning 56% on second serve, and he's 14th highest in career service games won. And in fact, he's winning a higher rate of service games than players with big serves from the past, like Goran Ivanisevic and Mark Philippoussis. He's also doing better than several former world number ones like Rafa, Jim Courier, Agassi, Edberg, Lindell, and more. And one thing that's interesting to track, because you can say, okay, Djokovic wins a lot of first serves because of the movement, because of the ground strokes. If he hits a serve that's not great, let's say it's more like something you'd see from Philip Kohlschreiber, somebody who's like a top 50 type player. If he hits a serve like that, he'll probably get away with it because of his movement and defense. He'll be able to turn defense back into offense, even if he put in a serve that wasn't perfect, wasn't great. But when they track his average aces per match in the last 5 years, we notice an interesting trend. 2016 is 3.8. 2017 is 4.1. Remember, he was hitting more aces because he adjusted his motion because of the elbow. What did he call it? He wouldn't call it a surgery at the time, procedure or something like that. He was hitting more aces, but he wasn't hitting spots, and it really didn't count for much. So let's throw that year out. But 2018, 5.3, 2019, 5.7, and now in 2020, he's averaging 7.2. That's a massive jump, and the highest he's ever been at, 7.2 aces per match. So something is going on with the Djokovic serve, just like Peter Freeman, the tennis teaching guru from Crunch Time Coaching, observed with his expert coach's eye in Australia. Djokovic has outpaced his average rate of service games won 86% this season, and he's won nearly 90% of his service games in 2020, up from 87 in 2018 and 88 in 2019. And that has been key for Djokovic's incredible start to the 2020 season. I'm hitting everything I can in terms of variety of spin, slice, flat, hitting spots, body, wide, tee. I'm mixing it up all the time. Obviously, it depends who I play against. I have different tactics for different opponents, but I feel that my serve this year so far, ATP Cup, Australian Open, has been terrific, and it's allowed me to win a lot of free points. Djokovic continued, when I'm serving well, getting a high percentage of first serves in, it allows me to feel more comfortable, more confident, step in, and play at a higher level of tennis, which brings me to my big point of today's show. It's a shame for Novak Djokovic. A lot of people would have favored him to win the Sunshine Double, to win both Indian Wells and Miami. I was giving him a chance to go into the clay court season if he had won the Sunshine Double. So undefeated, win a lot of matches on clay, probably beat Rafa Nadal somewhere like a Monte Carlo early on, and maybe I was giving Djokovic a good chance, and if we have the French Open, if it still happens, maybe it will happen. I still give Djokovic a pretty good chance to go beat Nadal even on clay at the French Open. If Djokovic had to play Dominic Thiem and Nadal back-to-back somehow, maybe that doesn't work out for him. Maybe that's too much. But you could have argued Djokovic might have been able to beat Nadal last year. Maybe Dominic Thiem could have beat Nadal last year if he hadn't had to go through 2 days. Remember, it was interrupted by the crazy weather with the high wind speeds after Nadal and Federer played first semifinal. Djokovic and Thiem had a crazy one. They had to stop play. If it hadn't been such a chaotic day having to play in 2 matches, you could argue either one of those guys could have still maybe beat Nadal. So Djokovic, this is really a shame how this is all working out for him because, this could have been his best year ever. He's been going around saying that himself. On the flip side of that, especially if they do a rankings points freeze. Now, the ranking point freeze, that's going to help a lot of people, and they deserve it. Maybe you could argue that Roger Federer doesn't deserve it because he should have dropped all those points. And the Indian Wells points are going to go away. Maybe they'll put them back. We'll see what the ATP does. We'll keep track of it, and we'll let you know on the show for sure. But if they do a rankings freeze, think about that. Federer gets to keep his points, recover from his surgery, and very likely the way this looks like best case, and honestly, this to me, it looks like a best case scenario. Best case scenario is we get the French Open in with like no clay tune-ups because I don't believe that we already know they're not going to play Barcelona or Monte Carlo. That's not going to happen. And I don't think they're going to play Madrid or Rome either. So best case scenario is you just play the French Open. But to me, it looks very likely that there will be no clay this year. Roger Federer, maybe with a rankings freeze, gets to still be a top seed at Wimbledon, and we go straight to Wimbledon, skipping the French Open. How crazy would that be? So this benefits Roger Federer in several ways, obviously. Kill the momentum of a Djokovic, Nadal, whoever. Take away all the confidence that people are going to build. Be very interesting to see who finds ways to practice and stay on top of their game during this period where they're not playing. And who's really affected by it. Everyone's going to feel not match tough, but, I would think the big three, they succeed in everything. Maybe they will do a lot better not being match tough, coming right back on the grass. It's a crazy thing. So think about it. Roger Federer can't be tied in the Grand Slam count by Rafa Nadal if there is no French Open. Djokovic can't get any closer by winning the French Open. And neither of these guys can do anything to add points to the rankings. If there's a rankings freeze, obviously, either way, they're still going to be on top. But if there's a rankings freeze for Federer, he's not going to lose all these points. And it's going to be within range to possibly pass these guys at some point in the 2020 season, even though it is a shrunken, tiny season now. So we'll keep you updated on what's going on with the ATP rankings, when will there be tennis, all of that stuff. Let's do a couple more things, and then we'll get out of here. And also, let's do our follow the. Make sure you're hand sanitizing and washing the hands. Man, how many times have you heard that lately? A couple things on rankings really quick. It is not beyond, this is from days ago, but they were looking ahead. This is from Metro UK, George Belshaw. It's not beyond the realms of possibility that the European clay court season and potentially beyond is completely wiped out this year, as we've talked about today, plenty. Rankings would be heavily affected. 40% of Rafa's current points, 3,900 points out of his 9,850 points, would drop off if the clay season was completely canceled, compared to 25% of Djokovic's points, 2,500 out of 10,000. Clay court specialists who rely on this period of the year to pick up the bulk of their annual points, a severe ranking slide. There'd be guys dropping out of the top 100, which is why I think they are going to do some kind of a rankings freeze. So there you go on that one. Let's do the thing about Kecmanovic, because I thought that was pretty interesting. Oh, also, of course, Roger Federer gets his logo back. We'll do that too, and then we shall get out of here, and we will finish up with Novak Djokovic's top 10 tips to stay healthy during the coronavirus scare. All right, this is the Coach's Corner at the ATPTour.com. The crucial thing Miro Hrvatin wants, and I'm probably not saying his name, he's a Croatian guy. He played on tour, but looks like he was never really ranked higher than 1,400 something in the world. But he has been working with Kecmanovic, I think since Kecmanovic was 10 years old, something like that. So he said, what are your biggest priorities this year with Kecmanovic? You haven't seen Kecmanovic. He's the guy with a Serbian guy, great ground strokes, really good ground strokes, and very developed quads, very developed legs, able to get down and hit the ball really hard. And I think it's interesting what they're talking about, because this is the one thing that I have noticed as separating, other than mental toughness, separating the top players from everybody else. This year, he's stepping closer to the baseline. He's moving into the court much more aggressively. His serve went up a level, and I think that's the main thing we want to keep pushing. It is trying to play deep balls and stay close to the baseline, take time away. That's not a one-day job, but that's something that we will try to make better this season. That is really the most important thing to me, other than being mentally tough, playing the big points well, that kind of stuff, is being able to step in and take offense, take the ball earlier. Even Rafa Nadal, who loves to go way back, we all know that he's always hunting for the opportunity to either hit a ball from inside the baseline or even go to the net, make things happen up there. Kecmanovic said that practicing with top players, the question to the coach of Kecmanovic, Miomir Kecmanovic. He said that practicing with top players during the offseason, he learned a lot from them about taking time away, taking the ball early to push the point a little bit. How important is that to add to the game? Well, that's a crucial thing because everybody knows how to play forehands and backhands. Of course, at this level, everyone hits a great forehand or backhand. But once you take time away from them, things start to be different. We were lucky this preseason and last preseason. We really had good preseason camps, good players, some of the best players in the world, practicing with them. They're showing you the path of where you want to go, what you have to do, and what you have to work on. And then they asked the coach, is taking it early a footwork thing, or is this getting used to timing, which I thought was a good question. What's the key? It's a combination. Plus, I think it's the player who needs to be mentally aggressive. Again, a lot of stuff is technical, but in tennis, mental seems to be number one at the highest levels. It's something that I think is not only one thing. Footwork, very important, but the timing, very different if you're coming closer to the ball. How true is that? We saw Dominic Thiem struggle for so long. They say, hey, you need to shorten up your backswing, step in and take the ball earlier when you're not on clay, Domi. And it took him years to be able to do that. He's obviously getting a lot better at that now. And you see it in his results on the hard courts. Altogether, I think it takes time to fit this into place, but that's the thing that they're all doing. The top players is what he's talking about, the coach here. You don't have time while playing with the best players in the world. If you give them a short ball, you're dead. Simple as that. You lost the point. It's over. Very simple. So I thought that was interesting, talking about how that's somebody like a Kecmanovic. He's a next gen guy. Maybe doesn't get a lot of as much attention as other guys, but he was a number one junior. I think of, what was it, the Orange Bowl, big junior tournament. He beat Tsitsipas in the final. So he's right there in that same age group, and he should be in the conversation. I've been watching him a lot. Also, Ugo Humbert, he's a couple guys we should all keep our eyes on. And I thought that was important to see what a guy like him, who I think has a real chance to move up, he could be a top 10 player, to see what they're working on and what his coach thinks separates him from the best players in the world. All right, two more things. We'll get out of here. Roger Federer recovers the RF logo from Nike. When Federer ended his contract with Nike in 2018 and moved to Uniqlo, the ultimate unibro, his RF logo remained with the American company at the 20-time Grand Slam champion initiated a process to recover it. Well, he has. It's back. Does that mean we will get more RF hats with a Uniqlo thing on the back somewhere? I sure hope so. I think so. Hopefully by Wimbledon, we'll see some stuff like that for sale, assuming there is a Wimbledon. And finally, Novak Djokovic has shared his top 10 tips for fighting the coronavirus. Number 1, increase your intake of vitamin C and zinc. It is recommended to take 5 to 7 grams a day of vitamin C, and this can go all the way up to 10 grams. If you find liquid zinc, it's better than another form. If you do not find liquid zinc, it's advisable to take a dose in pills 3 to 4 times higher than usual recommended dose. Crush it on the vitamin C and the zinc. Drink warm lemon water, says Novak Djokovic, with some sea salt on an empty stomach every morning. Optionally, you can add fresh ginger and fresh mint leaves. Drink warm water with lemon several times a day. It's recommended to have it when your stomach is as empty as possible. Number 3, drink as much green juices and shakes as possible with leafy green vegetables, parsley, spinach, kale. These create an alkaline base in the body that destroys pathogens and viruses that persist in acidic environments. Number 4, acidic environment is caused by unhealthy fast food, stress, worry, anger, refined sugary drinks, and dairy products. So don't do any of that stuff, folks. Next up, it's advisable to consume a small portion of garlic cloves and a teaspoon of honey with cinnamon, also with wild oregano oil and ginger and cayenne pepper. So make sure you pick up a wild oregano oil next time you're at the grocery store, fighting over toilet paper. Colloidal, I don't know what it is. Colloidal silver water. I've never heard of it. Extremely effective for your immunity and fighting against poisons that we have in the body. Next up, various types of teas and fresh herbs. Always welcome. Spending some time in the fresh air in a natural setting like a park, a forest, a lake. It fills us with orgone, vital energy. It's crucial for living an abundance of health. Also, Djokovic reminds us to do mindful breathing exercises. In through the nose, out through the mouth. because it creates emotional and mental harmony and peace that allows you to cope more easily with the worry, fear, and uncertainty in this world. It also balances the metabolic processes crucial for optimal health. And finally, from Novak Djokovic, laugh. Enjoy music that fulfills you and makes you happy as much as possible. Be surrounded by loved ones when you feel a great presence of love, well-being, and joy. That, folks, hit the music is how you beat the coronavirus. Plus, maybe watch some old matches. Go on YouTube, watch some cool stuff. Maybe on a video, we will recommend some great matches from the past that you can watch. Final thing, game set in matchmaking. Russian tennis stunner Anna Kalinskaya fuels Nick Kyrgios romance rumors with a basketball date. Yes, the NBA is canceled now, like all things in life. But before they canceled it, spotted at a game, Nick Kyrgios and Anna Kalinskaya. Take a look. We saw this coming a long time ago. But good for you, Nick Kyrgios. Maybe you two can spend time together like Novak Djokovic recommends you do during the coronavirus scares. Be safe out there. Make sure you hand sanitize like me and Mr. Goat. Mr. Goat has put himself in a self-quarantine upstairs with 3 cans of tuna. But he said, don't worry, it'll all be over tomorrow when he needs more cans of tuna. Comment below what you think we should talk about in this time where there's no tennis. We'll talk about old matches maybe, all kinds of great ideas floating around out there, and we'll answer some of your questions and ideas in the next show sometime next week. See ya!